1, 2, 3, and... This old honky-tonk's an island on the stormy sea of life, where survivors can find shelter from the stinging rains of strife, where the old bar is a life raft and the whiskey is first aid, though relief is temporary, at the time it's tailor-made. I see the lights on up the highway, like a lighthouse through the storm, and this boat is beat and battered from a hurt no words can form. I'll let the neon harbor call me to where the frightened sailors flee, lifting glasses in the hope of shutting out the memory of a cold sea. Once I rode the waves so bravely when the years were on my side, but the currents turned against me. It didn't matter what I tried. And then a storm wind came a-blowing, and it didn't go away. And I knew the sea would be to me, there ain't nothing else to say. But I see the lights on up the highway, like a lighthouse through the storm, and this boat is beat and battered from a hurt no words can form. I let the neon harbor call me to where the frightened sailors flee, lifting glasses in the hope of shutting out the memory of a cold sea. Of a cold sea, yeah. Ooh, such a cold sea, yeah. Cold sea, cold sea, a cold sea. What's that plaque John Kennedy had on his desk? Oh God, they sea is so great, and my boat is so small.
Where's that from?
I don't know what that's from. It must be some... I don't know. I have no idea. Anybody want to call in and give us that piece of trivia?
Yeah. Well, welcome to another episode of A Question of Meaning. We're Arthur and Katie, and glad you've tuned in or stumbled upon us, whichever it may be.
If you stumbled, stay, but a spoiler alert, this may change your outlook on life. Or it may prove toxic to your most hallowed beliefs. We try. Let's put it that way. That's right.
That's our fondest desire.
That's right.
That's right. So that was a song by Arthur Honky Tonk, and that's introducing. Last week we did a show where we just did it kind of free form, but we thought we'd have a topic again this week.
Yes, please. It's almost my undoing.
It was.
Got in touch with my rage and anger.
Yeah, but it was interesting. Interesting. And so we decided to kind of talk about something that has come up a number of shows, and somebody who is a viewer has questioned us about it, actually, which is free will. But instead, we're really going to focus on compassion, because we think that in order to get to compassion, you have to tackle free will first.
Most assuredly.
And the key for us, the key to compassion is to kill the belief in free will.
I could deal with my anger that way too, because the reason I'm pissed off is because I'm devoid of compassion. Anytime we're angry, it seems to me right now, there's an absence of compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well.
If you really, what is it? To know all is to. To understand all is to forgive all.
Well, with compassion, I mean, we should have looked up the word, because what's the etymology of compassion? But I always, in my mind, thought it was the part meant with another. So it was like empathy, which is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So to have compassion for another, it requires empathy. It requires the understanding of the other person's motivations and fears, and in life history, and not that you necessarily have to know it all, but that you feel how life is, like looking through their eyes.
You're aware of extenuating circumstances.
That's right. It's a nice
as actual influencing factors.
And that song "Honky Tonk," for me, that's what that song's about. Is that life is so hard, that our boats are so small and such a sea, and there's so much out there. Life is so complicated, and that some people, that's the way they deal with the problem of life in that tiny boat.
I've dealt with it that way.
Is the safe, what feels like a harbor, a safe harbor that of the bar, the place that you can drown your sorrows, and that's something that I've really liked, that I've learned to do, is when somebody's made a mistake of some way or other, and they're apologizing to me, I say, you know what? Life is so complicated. Life is so hard. The amazing thing is that we get through it as well as we do.
This sounds like bleeding heart liberalism to me. I think I smell a socialist.
Oh, well, yeah.
Just turn the serial killers loose, right?
No,
there's a great story, a local story, that I've gotten kind of addicted to, the Citizen Times comment section on any story. There's a section of on comments. Sergeant Rock, I love you. I love your style, man. Anyway, there was you may have heard of it, a tourist. This is going to be sometime in late June. The show will air.
Right. So this is sometime in May.
In May, a tourist was bitten on the foot by a bear, and the park policy is whenever there's a bear does that, the bear gets euthanized. The bear gets killed.
Yeah, please.
Please, these euphemisms. Euthanized. Anyway, and there was on the comment page, it was like, hang the tourist, save the bear. I mean, there was this outpouring of compassion for the poor bear. I mean, it couldn't help it. The stupid tourist let him get close enough. So it wasn't the bear's fault, and it was just save the bear, And like 99% were coming from that editorial position. When we were working on our book in North Georgia, north of Atlanta, we were all innocent by reason of insanity. We read a story in the Atlanta Constitution about a goat named Snowball, who had butted his aged owner to death in his enclosure, just butted the old man to death. And they were going to euthanize the goat. They were going to put Snowball down, kill him. But when it came out in the story that the old man had really abused the animal, just beaten him and starved him and everything, and the goat was just getting some payback, man, here come the letters and, pleas for pardon, and everybody just had nothing but sympathy and compassion for Snowball, and screw the owner.
He got what he deserved.
And the Snowball was indeed pardoned and sent to a petting zoo, and maximum security petting zoo.
We always thought that was rather ironic. But the point is. In those same newspapers, say the Citizen Times, when those young people, the so-called anarchists, did the vandalism.
Which we hold as completely inappropriate. Wrong.
Well, but we don't know. I know, and I'm not necessarily. I don't want to go there. What I'm saying is that something that really minor, $10,000 of damage. I mean, come on.
15.
Broke some windows. That people were writing into the Citizen Times saying these people, these kids need to be taught a lesson.
Put them in a cage with Bubba.
Right, so that they can be have some horrible things happen to them.
Daily raping will teach them a lesson. They'll not soon forget. Just hang them up, hang them high.
That's right.
Kill them.
And what's the difference? What
What
is
is
the difference between the human
I'm
and the
glad you
animal?
asked that question. The reason we have compassion, endless compassion for animals, is because we believe they don't have free will, choice, but we do. So when someone molests a child, or someone commits a burglary or vandalism or littering or drunk driving or anything, because the idea, the concept of free will is so, it didn't take us long to get to this, did it? It's such a holy, the holy of holies, the cornerstone of most of our belief systems, even though the battle between the argument for free will and against has been raging throughout human history.
Wow.
Most people want to believe that free will exists. And because you have free will choice, you knew better than to do that, and you should be put in the cage with Bubba and raped daily, until you've learned your lesson. That'll teach you, Strapping Eileen Wuornos, because Wuornos knew.
That's right.
Ted Bundy knew. Jeffrey
right.
Dahmer knew. You might want to send the kids out of the room right now.
Well, in our manuscript, which I've been going over recently, of We're All Innocent by Reason of Insanity, there's an example that I like in there that you give about if you go to somebody's house and you play Monopoly, and you roll the dice and your little icon lands on Arthur's Park Place that has a hotel on it. You're not going to get, you might be mildly annoyed.
You just lost the game.
Probably. But, it was the dice. It was a roll of the dice. That's a saying.
You rolled the dice.
That's right. It wasn't, it's a mechanistic game.
It's the luck of the draw.
I mean, Arthur may have
Unless
chosen
you're a really
to
bad sport like I am, I hate losing.
But on the other hand, if you play a game like Risk, which is the strategy game of military conquest of the world, and in that game, it involves dice, but it also involves choice. I can choose whether to invade your country or invade Arthur's country, and it's not always clear what's best. So what if I invade Arthur's country instead of your country? We're going to have a raging argument when we get home. It's like, how dare you humiliate me in front of those people?
I was literally kicked out of someone's apartment, not literally, but I was kicked out of someone's apartment once from a Risk game. They got so pissed off at me for attacking them. And take it personally.
Once again, it's because choice, the free will choice underlies that's where the anger comes from. And that's why when we're saying to get at compassion, you really have to take care of free will first. You can't get to compassion as long as you believe in free will.
That's right. What we're talking about is to get to a place in which forgiveness is not necessary. You don't forgive anybody. If what's the example I was thinking of earlier today?
Well, let me just say this while you're thinking of it, that Jesus said, supposedly, on the cross, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And what we think, that's what he really meant is have compassion for them, for they know not what they do. Because that's the basis of compassion, that they have no clue. People, they think they're acting freely, but they have no idea what they're doing.
If you're taking a tour of a mental hospital, and you're going through a ward, and a patient hurls their bedpan at you, it may be unpleasant, but if you're remotely, dealing with reality, you're not going to blame that person. They're a mental patient. They can't help it. Their thinking is skewed. Their thinking is distorted, deranged, and they know not what they do. And say, well, that's what I get for, coming in here without a biohazard suit or whatever. But the point that we make in our book, which is going to be deeply offensive to a lot of people, I mean, maybe that's what our real purpose is, to offend as many people as possible. Before we die.
Possible.
What we're saying is that we have conveniently categorized people who are what we call clinically insane, who really just cannot cope with objective reality, which is water's wet, rocks are hard. The way the world looks without judgment. Just the way it is, bricks, buildings, cars, grass, trees, birds. They're so distorted. Their perception of reality is so distorted that they have to be either or heavily medicated or kept in an institution for their protection mostly and occasionally for other people's. We conveniently categorize that minority. They're the crazy ones. The rest of us who are walking around loose, we congratulate ourselves, are sane, in our right minds, free of mental derangement. We're responsible, tax-paying members of the community, and we don't have any problems. So this would be a real good time, I think, to give our definition of insanity and show how that segues into compassion. And our definition of insanity is a state in which we confuse our subjective opinions with objective fact. That we do not see reality clearly. We are deeply distorting and deranging our perception of objective reality. Our tribal customs, beliefs, opinions, superstitions, value judgments that are, when we're babies, are imprinted and stored in our minds. All Jews are money grabbers are stored with the same validity as look both ways when you cross the street. Look both ways when you cross the street is a verifiable, pro-survival, objective fact. It's a good idea every time. All Jews are money grabbers is some archaic notion that has been handed down from generations that will not stand up. You cannot possibly make a generalized statement like that has any validity at all. It's a nonsensical value judgment, a belief that has no rational credibility. But the mind, when you're a child, it's input from your parents, your tribe, your schoolmates, sexual superstitions, religious hocus pocus, and it gets stored like it's valid. And most people conform. I want to do a show on conformity. I think that'd be really important. And most people go through lives with these deeply held assumptions that they're not really aware of, are like cataracts over their ability to see reality objectively. And they don't realize that incoming sensory data has to pass through all that garbage and completely distort subjective reality in the process.
Right, so we think we're seeing clearly and that we're perceiving reality clearly, and really what we're seeing a very distorted, subjective version of reality. And what I was thinking, I can't imagine why, I was thinking of a Civil War battle one day, and I was thinking about what was it that drove one of those just suicide charges. What kept those men
Pickett's
going
charge,
up?
that's a
Something
good one,
like
Gettysburg.
that. I mean, what would make you get up and run across the field knowing you were going to get shot down? I personally don't understand that. I can't see myself doing that. And as I was contemplating that, this phrase came to my mind: we vastly overestimate our level of consciousness, and we vastly underestimate our level of unconsciousness. We think we're conscious. We think we're aware. We think we are freely choosing our activities in the day. We think we're in control. When the truth is, there's this vast level of unconscious thoughts, beliefs, assumptions that truly drive our behavior. And that is where most of, if not all, truly, of our actions occur. And our conscious mind comes around after the fact and rationalizes to ourselves why we acted in that way and tells us a story about how we controlled that behavior. And an example is getting angry. I mean, when I think about times I get angry, which is pretty much a daily, any day I can pick. We were just discussing how I got irritated at Arthur yesterday.
No, that's depressing.
When
if
we
she
were filming,
gets angry every day, I'm a hopeless case.
I got angry. I got irritated. Well, this is a polite word for Arthur. It's like a mild anger with Arthur yesterday. And when I think about it, did I consciously say, oh, he is doing something that I don't think he should be doing, so the appropriate response to that is anger? No. I notice in myself, or you notice later, there's like kind of rising tide of emotion, of feeling, of anger. And I have a reason in my mind. He's not,
He's not doing it right.
Usually I'm not even thinking about why. At that moment, I'm not conscious of it. It's like this anger takes over, and this unconscious response, something that's coming in that's from the outside, is coming, I'm sensing it. I react to it from my unconsciousness. And it arises to my level of consciousness. I'm angry, and I act out being angry. But that doesn't mean I didn't have any control over that. If anything, I was completely out of control. And I was actually aware of it at the time, thinking, God, you've got to stop this. This is really unfair. You're treating him like he's your employee or something. I have these weird things that goes, that's like a whole long story. But see, my story about why it's okay for me to act that way. And it's like, you got to stop this. But it's so deep inside. It's hard to control it. So.
I, on the other hand, am a sulker and a pouter and a brooder. And I feel it. I know when it's starting. You feel like a fever coming on.
Mm-hmm.
And the voice of reason says, stop it now, communicate or do something. But I think I'm going to behave like an ass for, can I say ass? Got some comments about our language. We're trying to clean it up.
We're trying
it's not
to be
really
good.
necessary. Our next show, if URTV survives, which is in jeopardy, apparently, we're told. We don't know anything about it. But, there's an opportunity to stop it. Our next show will be after 11 o'clock, is what I was trying to say. Then we can talk how we want. There's an opportunity, you think, but even then, once I become aware of it, it's obviously based on the way I behave 99% of the time. I don't stop it. It's already in progress. The number's already being prepared. The melodrama.
Mm-hmm.
So the point we're trying to make, I know what it was. The analogy. What we're saying, we're in control. This is really dark, but we're in control to the exact degree that the people on 9/11 who were on the 90th floor of the World Trade Center, which it was when it was on fire, looking down 90 floors to certain death. And you jump because there is no choice whatsoever. The flames, the heat, the smoke, they dictate your next move, which is launching yourself out into space. And what we're saying is that the psychological forces that control all of us, coming from our dear friend, the subjective ego, if you've seen any of our earlier shows, are just as dictatorially compelling. They force us to behave in a certain way, and we have no control over it at all. We have the ability to objectively become aware of these. When I drink, I like to get, basically slightly loaded every night. And I found it got in the way, so, I haven't had anything for some months now. But when I realized I was a slave to nicotine, I had to face that. It was probably that more than anything else when I realized I was absolutely hooked on that stuff. And I couldn't stop, and it was terrible in all ways. I may have gained weight since, but God, at least I'm not sucking burning smoke into my lungs. That you're compelled against all reason. You think if your body had a vote that it would suck burning smoke into its delicate lung tissue? Hell no. There's something driving you. There's a kick. There's the honky tonk. There's the soothing balm of alcohol that lets you get through another day of unhappiness, that medicates your emotions, as they say in AA. So there are all sorts of examples. I've heard people in AA, as a matter of fact, say that they were grateful for their alcoholism because it got them in touch, not only with the spiritual side, but just how little in control they were. We, in our first book, The Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity, you can look us up at gameofgod.com. We did a variation of the 12-step program. The first step in Alcoholics Anonymous is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Well, we came up with Humans Anonymous, and the first step in Humans Anonymous is we admitted we were powerless over our egos, that our lives had always been unmanageable. Mm-hmm. It's a myth that we're in control. And that doesn't mean you throw your hands up and start running around in circles screaming like a chicken with its head cut off. You have to act like you're in control. You're forced to act like that.
You make choices, but they're not free choices. There's a big difference there. That one word,
difference.
free.
And it introduces the element of humility.
That's right.
In that.
Yeah, actually, when we were first started working on these ideas of we're all innocent and realized that we had to, really tackle free will, I went to the library and got a number of philosophy books that dealt with the issue of free will. And it's an interesting problem that's been going on for thousands of years. And whenever there's a problem of that nature that cannot be solved, you have to start wondering, really, well, maybe the question is what's wrong. Maybe is it free will or determinism? Maybe we're asking the wrong question if we can't solve it in all these years. But what was interesting was I maybe read 5 books, and every single one of them concluded that free will couldn't exist. When you really took off and looked at the underpinnings of reality and how things work, free will cannot exist. But you know what they would conclude? These are philosophers, okay? The philosopher would say, well, free will may not exist, but life without free will would not be worth living. So, somehow it must exist. I mean, some people whose whole, I would think a philosopher is based on logic, right? Logic is one of your basic philosophy courses you take.
One would hope.
And they would end with the most
everything.
Illogical conclusion but that's how powerful free will is. That's how powerful we want to believe in free will. Then other people said, okay, well, there's one place I can imagine free will to be, and that is in the quantum mechanical, on-off indeterminacy principle, so that in our brain, the chemicals that are making up the messaging in our brains and making the connections, that all of those chemicals are having these atoms that are blinking on and off and not really, you don't know where they are. And so free will exists in the space between where you can tell where an atom is going to be at any given second. I was like, so free will is in the indeterminacy principle.
It sounds like the geocentric model of the universe.
Because the whole
Earth
point
is the center of the universe.
The whole point of free will is that I have control because I freely choose. So if you're basing my free will on some random movements in my brain, that doesn't sound much like control. It's like that's actually worse than not having free will.
Here's some honest science. That science has proven that a stimulus response, touching your skin, but if you have a blindfold on, and they touch your skin, there's a half-second delay, 1/2 second, before you even become aware of it. That's a skin response. That's no thinking required. That's central nervous system, right to your brain. But yet your mind makes you feel like you became aware of it the instant you were touched. A half second.
Well, so what they've done is like, say, you're given the instruction to, when you feel a touch, push the button on the computer screen. So people are touched, they push the button on the computer screen, and then they have the brain monitor seeing where the impulses are going in the brain. The people push the button before the impulse gets to their cerebral cortex, where they have the thought process of what they're doing. So they tell themselves that they were the ones that controlled the pushing of the button. But the timing is off. They push the button before it gets to their thinking mode. So they can't. So we tell us, like I said earlier, we make up stories to tell ourselves how we are in control of unconscious processes that are going on. And it's kind of scary.
Because that time lag is not unimportant at all, to quote Robert Pirsig.
That's right.
Nothing unimportant about it, because when you start factoring in, if you're reading a book, you have to your objective mind takes in the physical formation of those letters, resolves those letters into words, the sentence into a coherent meaning, and that's just objective reality. Then you're going to subjectively value judgment. Is this good writing? Is it bad writing? Do I understand it? Is that obscure? Is that difficult? All that stuff is laid on top of that. So we're talking about a half second behind the present just with a skin response. So by the time you really analyze every instant of reality, which is what our magnificent brains are doing, and the sluggishness induced by subjective value judgment, you are way behind the present, baby. And if you think it's almost like being drunk at the wheel, The reason drunks have more wrecks is because they're way back there and they're not in the present.
That's right.
They're in a very delusional state. And what we're suggesting in our work is that delusional state exists to a lesser degree in all of us. And that's why we say we're all crazy. If you think you're in control of your life, you think you're actively imbued with free will choice, that you can really, the words that are coming out of my mouth right now are based on every book I ever read, every, time I've ever tried to express myself, the way I'm feeling right now, the temperature in the room, this nonsense about indeterminacy and the rat hole escape of indeterminacy. Don't tell me the universe is capricious. I don't buy it. Einstein said God doesn't play dice with the universe. We say God does play dice, but they are fully loaded. The game is rigged. It's supposed to look like we're in control. It's supposed to look like we have choice, but free choice, but we don't. And to believe otherwise is basically crazy. It's like you might as well think you're Napoleon Bonaparte.
So let's bring this back to compassion, because we did say we wanted to talk about compassion, and free will is our route to compassion. So as Arthur told the story of the bear and the goat earlier, that when we think somebody freely chose to do something that we think is wrong, we can blame them. When I think I have done something that I freely chose and it was the wrong thing to do, I feel shame. And these are paralyzing. The shame is very paralyzing. And the blame, when you blame someone else, you just lock them into this. If they did wrong, that means they are wrong. That we equate behavior with the person, because if they freely chose it, then
they did it on purpose.
They did it on purpose. That means that's part of who they are, is somebody that would freely choose a wrong thing. And so it's impossible to have compassion for them because they're wrong, they're bad, they're evil. How do you have compassion for someone like Adolf Hitler? I mean, he was just a stone evil man, right?
Yeah, because he was a bad guy, wore a black hat.
He freely chose to do all that horrible stuff.
Look at our movies. This is a bad guy, and if they're the bad guy, they're bad right to the core of their being. There's
right.
No redeeming features at all.
Right.
And Mr. Hero was just perfectly good to the marrow of his bones, or her. Just perfect. I almost said something. They're perfect in every way. Yeah, that's right. And that's crazy thinking. That's what's wrong with the world. That's why we have hydrogen bombs aimed at each other. Why squabbling morons can't get along with each other. They're still fighting and feuding because they're crazy. Every tribe, wants to have their own sovereign territory in their own right, and we're special and we're different, we're better than you are, and we'll kill you if you try to take anything. We'll blow ourselves up, fly planes into buildings, Just nuts. We're one people. You take a blood sample from an African or a Muslim or a Chinese, you know what? The blood looks the same under a microscope. I don't think you see any difference. We're all one people.
So, I wanted to get to a song. And so this song, when I said the paralyzing nature of shame, one of the things that belief in free will does is it actually makes it harder to change. Because say I have, a sex offender. We use that as an example in the book. You have this desire to have, say, sex with a child. And there's something wrong with that, but it's really in there, and you struggle with it. You try to distract yourself, but you just keep wanting it, and you keep wanting it. Well, in our society, because we believe in free will, it's embarrassing to go tell somebody that you have those feelings because you're freely choosing it.
That's right.
So that means you are wrong. You are an
willful
evil person,
pervert.
a pervert. So people are ashamed. People they don't go asking for help because, I don't want to admit
you might
there's
get put in
something
jail.
wrong with
What was
me.
that we read about the woman that breastfed and she
Yeah.
got arrested? And
She
She
called
called
a
a hotline.
hotline because she had sexual feelings when she was breastfeeding her baby, and they put her in prison till they got the La Leche League got her out. But so the point is that if the free will, belief in free will actually drives people underground with their desires and their feelings. And so because the person doesn't get help, then they're more likely to act on their desires because they haven't had any help in learning how to cope with them. And so and then we put them in prison where they get no help at all. So
they get extra punishment. You know what I mean?
Right. That's right.
Bubba.
So what we're talking about here by removing the belief in free will and saying that these people have these desires that are they don't have any control over, then you don't have to be ashamed of them because you don't have any control over them. Something happened to you. This got implanted in you in some way. So come and let us help you learn how to deal with them.
While you're in a
them.
maximum security
Maybe.
mental facility, you're
Right.
not allowed to walk around loose. Look at the movie Eileen Wuornos. Look at the movie Monster, Charlize Theron, to see, man. I mean, I've never read about a serial killer yet that didn't have a deeply screwed up background, and whatever. Even if they were like normal kids who just went south, they were crazy. That's why they did that stuff. One of our favorite examples of just how wacky we are, we supposedly sane people represented by our DA and prosecutors. In the Jeffrey Dahmer trial, the prosecutor argued to the jury that one reason he knew that Jeffrey Dahmer was not insane and was in his right mind was because he had the prudence to use a condom when he was having sex with a corpse. Now, who's crazy? It's only a matter of degrees. Katie's father's a psychiatrist. We asked him, what is the definition? How do you define insanity? And he said that it's simply a legal term. Basically, it's if you know the difference between right and wrong, you're sane. I mean, can you believe that?
So then we asked him, well, how does the psychiatric community define sanity? And he laughed heartily. That there is no definition of sanity. The one man who actually tried to find, he did a study to try and find what it was, kind of threw up his hands and said, if this, he was doing college students. He said, if this is what normal is, I have no idea what it is to be normal.
I think you'll probably find a good example of it in about 1,000 years if we don't blow ourselves to bits first or just pollute ourselves to death.
Well, so I wanted to do the song
All right.
Opening, and the
Oh,
reason
that's
I
what we're
said
gonna
that
do.
as
Okay.
on two, the reason I was saying that about the shame, like for instance, I talked earlier about Arthur mentioned earlier this morning that he had noticed I'd gotten irritated with him when we were out filming yesterday at Beer City Fest, and usually. Years past.
I was already suffering because I couldn't have any beer that was flowing like water all around me.
In years past, I'd have gone, I wasn't angry at you. What are you talking about? You're making that up. Because I wouldn't want to admit that I'm that kind of person who gets angry because of what it would mean about me. I freely chose to get angry at him. And now it's so much easier to go, yeah, I got angry.
We're nuts.
I'm nuts. It's this thing that I got running in me that I'd really like to stop running. But yeah, I got angry.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, there's still consequences. Societal order must be maintained. If you're a criminal, we're going to remove you from society because chaos would be otherwise. But instead of punishing you for being compelled to do what you probably know intellectually is definitely the wrong thing to do.
Right.
Serial killers don't want to get caught because they want to keep doing it. And they're very dangerous, and they need to be put away. But they don't need to be electrocuted, lethally injected, hung, shot. Maybe they should just be given to the mob. Maybe they should be crucified on the Washington Mall. We should have crosses around the Washington Mall. Let's bring back the Roman style. Nail them up, I say. Nail some sense into them.
Wasn't that George Carlin's solution to the national debt crisis was to...
A lottery.
Yeah,
It was a lottery. You
could-
have the execution on TV, and their
Right.
head gets chopped off.
and
There's
bet-
a series of tubes that go down to like 5 different baskets, and you bet on which basket it's going to wind up
right,
in.
and then it's televised, and the federal government should get the advertising revenue that goes with it.
You know, he was
Anyway.
doing that in a concert in front of college students, and they were heartily applauding, and it wasn't because they saw the satire of it. They thought it was a great idea. We're very, very revenge-minded culture because we believe in free will.
That's right.
As
Eye
well
for
as
an
that
eye.
lampoon line, the hanging judge was saying, the law is like our friend. Anyone who hurts our friend should be beaten senseless. All right, so what about this song, Opening?
Opening. Well, that's because this is about opening. Well, we'll talk about it maybe after we sing it. You sing it.
2, 3, and... There's a wave
That's not the
that's
song.
building. It is the wrong song. Jeez. This show is not rehearsed.
Maybe we shouldn't be doing this
No,
song.
wait, look out.
I
Wait,
thought, I
through
thought,
it.
the, I thought
I know
the
that beat
tempo
was
was
also...
like, what? This is
Shoot,
not
let me
opening.
just start singing it. 3 and... Look out, the hermit's emerging, lifting his head from the sand, groping a hand through the darkness, testing the lay of the land, and the drawbridge is lowering, and the great walls stand listening, and the door so imprisoning that holds my love is opening. Look out, the shut-in is thinking, maybe she'll try it again. The eyes in the dark, never blinking, fearing just how to begin. And the drawbridge is lowering, and the great walls stand listening, and the door so imprisoning that holds my love is opening. Look out, the cripple is walking, fearing to hope every stride. And now the lone castaways talking of catching the outgoing tide. And the drawbridge is lowering, and the great walls stand listening, and the door so imprisoning that holds my love is opening. Is opening, is opening, is opening.
You know, I was thinking that, I mean, I'm sure we've failed to persuade most people that in this show that free will doesn't exist. I mean, it's pretty complicated. There's a lot of examples. So I was thinking maybe just to suggest that people think about it, notice it next time when you're out interacting with somebody or out in the world, and notice if, say, you get angry or you get outraged. Think about it.
Or you get turned on.
What is the basis of that response? Are you angry? Like, let's say BP, Tony Hayward, is that the BP?
Hayward.
Whatever his name is.
CEO.
It's real easy to be angry at him right now, But, so examine that. What is the basis for your anger? Do you think that he freely chose to make the decisions that resulted in that? And that's kind of complicated because there's so many people involved in that. But, say you get angry at your child, or you get angry at your spouse, or you get angry at your boss. Think about it. Is there free will involved in that anger? Is that the basis for to justify your feeling? And just think about, what would it look like if they didn't have free will? What would it look like? Just try it out.
Well, the mind is insidiously logical. It always has a case. It always has a justification. I'm sure serial killers have a justification for their behavior. Mm-hmm. Bank robbers do.
Sure. Sure.
It's an evil society. Everybody's getting theirs. I'm going to get mine this way. They rationalize. It was I wrote a song on the subject. It's so you're going to have to overcome your own rationalizations, your own mental, justification for your behavior. Mm-hmm. But what really is operative is how much in control of that were you? How much in control are you really? Mm-hmm. And we say, not at all. We're not even present to make a decision. We're not even here in the now. Be here now, that, New Age, or essentially an Eastern aphorism. Mm-hmm. Be. And being, our definition of experience, the only way you can really experience the present is to be here in the present. So we define experience as being, free of a survival identity. You have to transcend flight, fight, animal behavior. And you know what? That's what we argue. Logically, we believe. That's what we operate in 99.99% of the time. And that 0.01% that we're not in that, we're in a state a lot of us call love.
So a lot of people, when we talk about free will with them, their responses, well, there's two responses. One, that they think we're going to advocate, letting serial killers run wild. And I hope, Arthur's made that clear that that's not at all what we're talking about. But the other thing is then, well, how do you change? How do you make decisions in your life? How do you get up in the morning and, choose between having toast or granola for breakfast?
Or staying in bed and going to work.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
work.
We like what in the Carlos Castaneda series, Don Juan had a phrase for it, which he called controlled folly. And Don Juan said that he said that your actions aren't going to make any difference. And really what we mean is that because we have these unconscious forces are really what's in control. But you have to act as if you're in control anyway. You have to act as if you have control. So are you going to wake up this morning and go to work? It's
want to pay your rent, or want to make your house payments, or want to save for retirement? Yeah, get up and go to work.
Right.
I mean, none of that changes. It's just what you keep in mind is the humility that you are not in control. You have chosen this path, but you haven't chosen anything
not freely.
You've chosen it. You choose to get out of bed, but you don't freely. What do they say in Lawrence of Arabia? What was that line? A man can do what he chooses, but he cannot choose what he chooses.
That's Schopenhauer said that.
It's Schopenhauer, right. All right.
A man can will what he wills, but a man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills.
See, that little delay in time, you've already done it. What we say is, and this is I'm so glad I remember this because I want to address this indeterminacy nonsense coming out of quantum mechanics. That's where free will lurks. Look, I'll go to the mat on this one. What we say is, you're existent. If you could crunch all the numbers, all the data, my existence, psychological and physiological configuration at any given moment, interacting with external stimuli, if you could crunch the numbers, you could predict the future every time. As a matter of fact, you could predict, just like they know the phase of the moon 50,000 years from now, on any given date, pick a date, they'll know what the face of the moon is going to be on that date. They'll know what moonrise is at a certain location. That's how inevitable it is. It is predetermined. What we're saying is that, where was I with that, with the indeterminacy thing? Anyone's existent psychological, physiological configuration interacting with external stimuli is going to produce an inevitable result. Psychologically, you could say it's the equivalent of a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. And if the damn devil is more prevalent than the angel psychological influence, you're going to jump. You're going to do what the devil says to do, and you're not going to come down until the better angel of your nature asserts itself sufficiently to suppress the devil input. It's very simple. It's very simple. So where in the hell did this free will nonsense come from? We call it in our book the greatest invention of the subjective ego. One of the ways our friendly subjective ego, and by ego we mean it's just a personality, it's who we really think we are, more than anything else, more than our body, more than anything, it's the we-ness, our personality. One of the main ways that ego holds control over us is through guilt, is through allowing us to rationalize our shortcomings, our failings, our vices, our dirty deeds, that it's carefully cataloged and stored in triplicate deep in our minds, and we're allowed to override that by putting in a sunny disposition and walking around like the sun shines up our backside. But it has all the goods, it has all the data, and it's completely empowered by the belief that we did all that stuff deliberately, that we chose to do it. And I think that's critical. I mean, what our work is about, if you can really get that you're nuts, if I get that I'm crazy, I can stop beating myself up for all my shortcomings. You know, it's tantamount to that scene in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest where they steal the fishing boat and all the patients go out on the boat, and they stop and pick up Mac's girlfriend. And she said, Mac, you better not do this. I mean, when they're getting on the boat, stealing the boat, she said, you better not do this. I mean, you're really going to serve some hard time for this. And he says, no, I'm not. We're nuts. They're just going to send us back to the hospital. So just to address that, because a lot of people are going to think, oh, this is just a hall pass for life. You're going to be able to excuse your behavior by claiming that you're crazy. Well, you could do that, but you know what? You're still going to suffer the consequences for your behavior. And crime will always require you, otherwise social chaos would result, to be removed from society. The difference is we're going to start studying criminal behavior and making some headway toward healing it instead of putting people in human zoos. God, I've never spent a day in jail. I'd probably hang myself the first night. You know?
I hope to God I never go to jail.
But we are bloody-minded. A huge, obscene percentage of our people are in zoos or in animal cages where violence and rape is part of the punishment. A polite, a subject that we just politely, and we have to look at something like Nasty Disgrace, Nancy Grace, to see, where we're really at in terms of criminal justice.
Another thing we have to give up, it's not just the blame and shame and guilt side, it's the credit side. And that's another thing that we cling desperately to because we're insecure and we have all this catalog of the things we've done that we need to hide from view. So here's the things that I freely chose, by my hard work alone. And I wish I want to find it in one of the magazines you subscribe to. There's an ad for like a wealth management service, and it clearly says you achieve this on your own. I mean, it's pretty close to those words. And that's what people want to believe. I did it.
I worked my butt
hard
off.
work. No one helped me. I mean, and that is such a lie. All of us are so supported by, there's so many intricate interconnections of how all of us are supported by everyone in the society and, things like education and your, parents and whatever. Everyone has their own way.
Even if your parents were losers and you determined you were not going to be that way, as God is my witness, I'll never go hungry again, whatever it was, whatever the decision was, and you ferociously attacked life and you worked 3 part-time jobs and put yourself through college and were just relentless in your pursuit of excellence and getting to the top. You know what? That was your existent psychological and physiological configuration interacting with external stimuli that produced an inevitable result. There was nothing capricious about it. And what's a great line from To Kill a Mockingbird when when Atticus shot that dog, the mad dog, and the kids later, when Atticus left, Miss Maudie said, "Didn't you know your daddy was the greatest shot in Macomb County?" And Jim said, "It seems like he'd have been proud of it." And Miss Maudie said, "Only a fool is proud of their gifts." So in our book, in our new book, one of the most powerful statements I think we make is, in order to, I lost that.
If you don't take the credit, you don't have to take the blame.
But so many of us so desperately need credit. I do.
I do, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're running out of time here. So
are we? Oh, shoot, we are. Let's do Anyway I Love You.
Yeah, okay, this is a song. We can't believe we haven't done this song yet. I guess we're going to do it, on 2.
2, 3. Well, I wonder if you really hear me. All these things I keep trying to say. I know you've got reason to doubt me, but I want you to know that I know that you know that I love you anyway. I failed to live up to my promises. I've blown it every step of the way. Basket case. I put so much misery on us, but still I want you to know that I know that you know that I love you anyway. Well, please understand, this poor love song is a poem to lady and friend, and to the stranger whose gaze I can't meet long, to the face in the mirror I want so to mend. I'm not asking for you to believe me. I can't trust in beliefs anyway. So I'll just say, well, I've got this song in me that I want you to know that I know that you know that I love you. Deep inside, it's who we are. It's all there is. That I love you. No matter what's going on the surface. That I love you anyway.
All right.
All right. Goodbye. We got to go. We're out of
Yeah,
time.
we've got about 20 seconds.
20
so,
seconds?
Yeah.
Remember, if you don't take the credit, you don't have to take the blame. Look at not having free will. What if that were true? That nothing you've ever done, it's your fault. You were crazy.
That you weren't freely choosing it. It was unconscious beliefs driving your behavior. Just think about it.
We'll be here next week, 7:30.
Thursday.
A question of meaning. Thanks.